Have you ever struggled with staying focused? Do you ever look for a tutorial or a video on YouTube and 3 hours later you wake up from a distraction trance and you're like, how did I end up here? Then in this video, I'll break down how to stay focused as a creative. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Happy 2022. I hope you had an amazing Christmas break. I wish you all the best for 2022. In order to make 2022 a great year, I think it's important to build a skill to become focused, as it's one of our superpowers as creatives. Today I'm going to talk about Nir Eyal's book, Indistractable. So last year I moved to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong has crazy strict rules with COVID and traveling in. So basically I found myself checking the news every minute of the day just to see if we could actually move here. And it just made me notice that this effect just rippled throughout the weeks after. I just kept being distracted. Therefore I picked up this book by Nir Eyal, and it just helped me tremendously. So let's jump right into the video and break down the insights. So let's take a step back and see how we end up in distraction. Most of the times when we end up in distraction, there is a trigger first. So the trigger could be anything. You see an ad on the street, you see a video on YouTube, you get a spark of boredom. It doesn't really matter. There are just certain triggers, and those triggers can cause two things. One is traction, one is distraction. Traction is the thing we want. Traction moves us closer to our goals. Distraction moves us further away from our goals. That's the thing we don't want. So it is important to keep in mind every time there's a trigger, and this trigger can go two ways. It can go towards traction and distraction. So basically, if you see this graph, it gives you a bit of an overview. So we have internal distractions or traction, and we have external distraction or traction. Those are really the powers at play. So let's jump into internal distraction first, because for most of the people, this is the most important one. So basically nowadays, we tend to blame tech a lot for our distraction issues. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's the algorithms, and they definitely know what they're doing, and they're definitely good with distracting people. But most distraction comes from within. And most distraction is actually a desire to escape discomfort. So I find myself doing this all the time. Basically, when I have to do something really tough at work and I don't really know how to figure it out yet, I'm really tempted to just watch 4 hours of tutorials where that is obviously not going to help me, and just procrastinate the whole thing because it's uncomfortable to tackle the job. It's uncomfortable to push myself this far, and therefore I just end up in distraction. But this is a good first way to see it. All distraction is a desire to escape discomfort, and people go through crazy lengths with it. There's this experiment he describes in the book where people had to sit in a room with just themselves, and the only thing they could do is give themselves an electrical shock. And actually most of the people ended up just giving themselves electric shocks because that was better than just sitting by themselves in a room. And therefore, if we want to become better at not being distracted, we actually have to build our tolerance for pain. And pain is not like the electrical shocks, but more pain in that we have to live with discomfort. We shouldn't get lost in discomfort. And on top of that, our brain is literally evolved for dissatisfaction and discomfort, because that's how we evolved to be better species. That's how we invented all these things. That's why we now live in cities. That's why we have MacBooks. That's why we have all these things, because we're dissatisfied with the status quo and we want new things. But obviously, that doesn't help us for distraction. First tip to beat internal distraction is to reimagine the trigger. This, I found the best tip of the whole book. Basically, when you feel you're gonna get distracted, what you do is you notice the feelings you get before you get distracted. For example, when I'm working on a really tough job, my feeling would be like, oh my God, I have no idea how to figure this out. So the second step is writing down the trigger. So my trigger would be, it's too complicated, I have no idea how to sort this out. So the third step is you just explore your sensations. I feel uncomfortable, I feel this block in my stomach, I don't know what to do. I feel I want to do something completely different. Just feel what you feel and then observe it. See it from a distance, but don't get lost in it. Because this really relates to meditation, which I'm a big believer in, and see the video above. And I love how Nir just put the link between the two together without actually describing it in the book. And then the fourth tip is be aware of liminal moments. So we all have this when we go to the toilet, when we wait for a render to come in. When you have those moments where you're just waiting for things, it's so easy to just grab your phone, scroll through Instagram. But actually those are the moments that we just need to take a step back, be present, and they'll get lost in distracting behaviors. I think that way we create more time for creativity, for ideas, and we relax more as well. If you just keep scrolling through Instagram, obviously your brain is just going to get more and more tired. We need that energy to do the things that we actually want to do instead of the things we just do to escape discomfort. And the second tip is reimagine the tasks. So instead of thinking the task is a really boring thing, instead of thinking you don't want to do it, make it something fun. He basically says that fun has everything to do with the immersion you have into the task. Instead of thinking something is boring, say you have to fill in an Excel sheet, try to be as present as you can. Try to make a game out of it. Try to make something fun out of it. And then you can see that it's a lot easier to beat distraction. I'm still working on this on a day-to-day basis. I try to do it with really easy things at the moment. So normally I would wash up the dishes while listening to a podcast or listening to music. Right now, I just try to be as present as I can. I feel it has an effect. I feel it makes me more present. I feel less distracted these days. This will probably have to evolve over time. Then the third one is reimagine your temperament. So basically they did research with recovering addicts. Think smokers, the biggest factor in them succeeding from breaking from their addiction is their self-belief. If they believe they would have a hard time, they usually didn't make it. But if they had the self-belief that they're like, I can do it, they would succeed. And this links as well to identifying with who you are. So instead of like saying, I'm stopping smoking, you could say, I'm a non-smoker, and therefore you identify as a certain person, and therefore you make it easier for yourself to not smoke anymore. This relates to everything. You can say, I'm a vegetarian, and therefore it's easier for you to not eat meat. And you can also say, I'm a focused person, and therefore you identify with that, and not being distracted would be a lot easier. So that was internal distraction, but it's just as important to make time for traction.